Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to season 2 of the Booga Mike Experience. Today I have my boy, once again, my co-host Riley, me, yes. Matt Drawn, and my boy Chase, and another Riley.
What's up?
What's your last name, Riley?
My last name is Stanton.
We're gonna call you Stanton from now on.
Works perfect.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful.
That's how it goes.
And so we're doing philosophers once again, and you wanna start us off, Riley?
Yeah, I'm sure. I will start us off. Just to clarify, we're going to do a little bit about the history and background, and then kind of go more into the philosophy, and then I hope we can get some conversation going. Last season, we had a great...
one episode.
Last season, we had a great conversation. I'd like to get a little bit more of that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful.
Man who really loved conversation, Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson, was a 19th century transcendentalist.
Ooh,
philosopher.
Little plug right there.
Yeah, he was pretty in it. He was in some wacky stuff.
Ooh.
He's a man of nature. He was always the guy that thought nature was the most important thing, the most important teacher.
Them damn hippies.
I know.
But who is your philosopher again?
Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Ooh.
Born in Boston, May 25th, 1803, which is a long time ago. Had some revolutionary ideas as he grew up and during the Civil War era and everything. His dad was a Unitarian minister, and his very fertile mother was, I forget her name, but she had like 7 kids.
God damn.
Ralph had 5, nope. Ralph had 4 siblings.
Okay.
3 of which died in childhood.
That's usually what happens.
This is a long list here, Matt. This is a long list. A lot of people died. A lot of people died back in 1803. So his 3 siblings died in childhood, and his other sibling was to die later in his 30s. His father died right around his 8th birthday.
Great.
His first son died, never to have another heir. And his wife died 2 years after they were married, exactly on the day. So this guy has been through some shit. If anybody's qualified to be a philosopher,
bro could not catch a break.
Yeah, honestly, bro, it's like, imagine how much more people we would have on this earth if modern medicine came faster. Just because it's usually he had 14 siblings and 10 of them died. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
In Mr. Emerson's household alone, there would be at least double population. But he went to Harvard for divinity school. There's not really much to be said about his childhood. I guess he grew up in 1803, so he's outside doing
he loves
shit. Yeah.
Playing jacks or whatever people in the 1800s did.
Yeah, he just touches grass.
Finding out what the things growing on cow patties were.
Sorts
of shit. He's having a great time. Leading to him going to divinity school, I guess when he's probably 19, 20, at Harvard, which is pretty incredible. But after his wife's death, he left the ministry. He realized the corruption in the church. He didn't really want anything to do with that. And the funny thing about Mr. Emerson's past is that he was such a renowned minister when he left, then directly after changed his entire philosophy. They asked him to come back and speak at the graduation ceremony, probably 20 years later, and he was like, "Guys, I'm so proud of you that all you guys made it through divinity school. This shit is absolutely useless."
Oh, damn. Is everybody?
He did not give a fuck.
He got so much backlash that they didn't ask him to come back for the next 30 years. Which is incredible. But they actually asked him to come back.
World's greatest troll.
Yeah. It took him 30 years to realize, damn, that shit was pretty good.
They kind of got us.
Bro, he's been playing this for 20 years to style on them hoes, bro.
Mm-hmm.
30 years later, like,
damn it, you're right.
the Harvard School for Prostitution is what the institution then became. So after he left the ministry, he decided he wanted to travel a lot. So he went to new places, new cities, taking in all the art, especially in France, a lot of Northern Europe. He really loved everything. The personal expression that he found in European cities was, I don't have any direct quotes, but something he claimed was the most fanatical thing he'd ever seen. He loved anything that had to do with individuality, which made him realize his philosophy, which I'll get into, that the power, he believed in the power of self-reliance and the power of honest self-expression. He thought what made people great is they could express themselves openly without any fear of what the social norm would say about it. But more so exclaimed that personal growth and development is the only thing you actually have, the only thing you can truly control. He realized that because what his philosophy on the origins of the universe was that everything originates from one individual or one unified particle, to say, right? And then everything after that was just a unique expression of that collectiveness, that individual, or that unison that all the universe shares. And he said that the best way to find that, the best way to find yourself, who you truly are, so that you can express your uniqueness, is to go out into nature, to sit in reflection, to be without fear the man that, or woman, I guess, that you know you are your true being. Because he said living in the world we live in today is probably one of the hardest things you could do. I mean, although there was lots of war, famine, and murder back in the day, he said to be faced with social rejection is incredibly hard thing. People struggle with it so much today that they lose their identity, which is the ultimate dilemma, is that you lose your identity. You don't know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, that's the one thing you have. You literally have nothing. I thought that was
kind of scary to think about, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, what are you gonna do?
To lose like all sense of self. Is
exactly.
Literally like not living at all.
Yeah.
In a way, you know what I'm
real.
saying?
For real, it's especially if that's all you got.
Yeah.
Because people think like,
that's
oh,
what
I gotta.
gives you your sense of purpose in a way.
Exactly. He said, what was it? There's a sense of purpose for everybody.
What leads people to like nihilism and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, he thought that there's a sense of purpose. Oh man, I can't find it exactly. Study nature, all that. Yeah. Anyways, he thought that purpose, that you don't find purpose. Purpose is living within the everyday and discovering yourself. That's the only true purpose to life. You won't wake up one day and be like, oh shit, I'm going to be the best musician there ever was, and that will be my purpose. It's discovering that is or is not what you have to do. There's only subjective truth, that virtue is exactly what it is in the moment in which it's virtuous. When you look in hindsight at things, there is no purpose, there is no virtue, no right or wrong. Everything within that is subjective, which I think will kind of contrast with Chase, your philosopher, with Voltaire.
Yeah.
I think that'll be kind of interesting. So why don't you give us a little bit of a spiel about who you got?
Okay, so Voltaire, from a very early age, he was kind of rebellious in a sense. He actually didn't believe that his father was his birth father. Like, he thought his father was illegitimate, and he thought that a local poet was actually his birth father.
Okay.
He hated both of his brothers. I don't know, hated might not be the best word, but he didn't like them that much. And then his mother, which was like the only family member that he did like, died when he was 7. So, I mean, that's kind of rough for him already.
Yeah.
But eventually, one of his grandparents takes him in, and they introduce him to this woman. I can't remember her name right now. I have my notes on my computer back in the dorm. This is a tough one. But basically, she introduces him to, like, some of his bigger interests, like theater and philosophy and all that sort of stuff. And so that's who he kind of, like, learns from. And he develops, obviously he had a sense of rebellion, but he doesn't like any authority figures after that if they can't explain why they're the authority figure. So he believes that, like, there has to be a reason for things to be as they are. It's called the efficacy of reason. So he develops that sort of philosophy, which also pairs well with certain ideas during the time period, because he was in the early Enlightenment period, where, like, science is developing and the scientific method is being produced. So he was very much so not just a scientific, almost a very meticulous way in thinking about how the universe works, how everything ends up intertwined, and how really just his philosophy in general is based off of right and wrong. He does believe that there is an inherent right and wrong as well, which is also very interesting. But moving on further to his life, he butts heads a lot with authority figures. I think it's the Duc d'Orleans sends him to prison for almost a year for writing a piece of some sort of paper that criticizes the government, but I don't even think it's in like a necessarily critical way. It's more making fun of the government at the time, which he lived in France. And so that causes him to further resent that sort of environment, and he ends up eventually, after getting out of prison and then writing a couple of plays that become well known for the time, he becomes a famous playwright before anything else really happens. He ends up going to England, and he discovers that he loves England because of the fact that so many figures like John Locke in England, who developed the idea of liberties, certain inalienable human rights, all of that sort of stuff. He develops the idea that that's like necessary for people. And so he kind of falls into that band camp that believes all of that at the time, which was a new idea. In France, was thought of as being almost crazy at the time. So he was a controversial figure back in France the entire time, pretty much. And what's also interesting is during his life, King Louis XIV was executed, and even though he was rebellious, he still didn't believe it was necessarily right to do so. And you can kind of see those themes in Candide, where it talks about suffering, but that's about all I have for right now.
All right.
I like the book Candide. Funny because your mom made me read it in AP Lang or something in high school, but I actually adapted my personal philosophy from that. Even though he was making fun of, what was it, eternal optimism, where this reality is the best of all realities.
Which is actually kind of funny, because he had eternal optimism. So I don't know if he was necessarily making fun of it, or if there's some sort of nuance to it. Well, that's what my mom thought. And she was teaching it. But no, he was very much so optimistic, or at least he tried to appear to be optimistic. Like when he got out of prison, a lot of people could not tell that he was ever in prison with the way he behaved, the way he acted, because he always was such a cheerful guy.
Yeah. Maybe it was more of a demeanor. I hope that was his philosophy, though.
Yeah.
Because I think he spoke really well to how, like, giving the devil's advocate to, like, things are kind of shit. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
You know. Which
I think he kind of knew both, but he was
world kind of thing you don't know about.
Yeah.
Probably want to say ignorance.
He kind of knew both, but he always saw the silver lining.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So optimism isn't how can I be oblivious to things. It's how can I see what's bad and not say, man, that just sucks.
Yeah.
It's just not being pessimistic about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. It's more like looking at it from a more objective standpoint, really.
It's really zooming out,
Yeah.
and I am so excited to get to your philosopher because he's like the king of, hey, zoom out, and it's not a big a deal. Because it's like taking a step back, you know, and realizing objectively it's not really that bad, you know.
Speaking of that, of zooming out, I have a philosopher that also goes into that.
Okay.
So I guess it's my turn to shine here, because the philosopher I did today, fellas, is Marcus Aurelius. See, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor from 161 to 180 AD. He was on the list of the rulers known as the 5 good emperors of Rome. And his philosophy was Stoicism. basically, over the summer, I decided to pick up a book by him called Meditations. And the book basically is him writing notes to himself every day about life and about everything. He never wanted it to be published, but after his death, they all connected like his notes and everything and really put it together in a book. So basically, what it's about is basically seeking the logos in everything. Instead of looking at like emotion and everything, it's more like, in a way, zooming out and seeing the world for what it really is. And then basically, a quote that really does sum this up pretty well is this one. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you'll find strength.
That's great. It's like the efficacy of reason. Isn't that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what that's like.
Basically, Marcus Aurelius states that what we see through our own eyes are perceptions of everything. Everything we see that are good or bad are just perceptions. They don't really mean anything. It's what our mind does and takes it. If I got $1 million today, we would say, damn, that's a good thing. I got a fucking $1 million. Like, yo, what's up with that? You know what I'm saying? But no. Marcus Aurelius states that it's just an event that happened. Yeah. It's our brain that takes that. If like a passing of a loved one or anything, that's just an event. And he'll go on to state that there's a higher order of things, saying that when bad things do happen to us, it was prescribed to happen so we can grow as an individual.
That's great. That's like that eternal optimism where it's like, where everything happens for a greater reason, for the good of the order of reality, instead of being pessimistic.
But here's the funny thing about this. He may have some sort of internal optimism, but it's not like that either, or nor is eternal pessimism, because he states that, why should you care about anything? Everything's going to be swept away in time and you'll be forgotten a generation later. He basically talks about that. He basically states that, like, over time, like, the praises of people aren't going to mean anything. And one of my favorite quotes from him, it's not word for word, but it really always sticks with me, is that, why should you care about what other people think of you when they can't even meet their own standards?
Okay.
Yeah.
Explain that, Drone.
So, you want me to explain that?
Yeah.
So, in our own minds, you know what I mean, we seem to care about what other people think of us, more than what our opinion is of ourselves. And a lot of the time, we're not all perfect individuals. We always think, oh, I should be doing this, or we always think we're mess-ups. Marcus Aurelius takes this a step further and says, everybody has that emotion one way or the other, so why should you really care? Because these people can't even meet their own standards. And like, so why should you even give a fuck? It's not your problem, basically. That's
so it's like so it's kind of like a different version of you exists in the minds of other people.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Because it's people's perceptions of you. Perceptions are subjective.
Yeah.
So that is pretty cool. And so I think the quote really sums this up well, if you want an explanation. How much time he saves who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or even thinks. So let me reread that quote, because I think I messed up some wording there. But because I wrote this out pretty fast. So basically, it's how much time he saves who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks of him. That's the quote. Basically, we're always looking at other people's opinions, like, does people think I'm cool? Does people think I'm nice or whatever? Like, you know, we're always worried about other people. Marcus Aurelius says, don't even worry about that. Focus on yourself and see how much time you really save. You know what I mean? His whole thing really is about that other people really don't matter in the large scheme of things. Their perceptions of you, their opinions of you. Nothing really matters at the end of the day but seeking the logic in anything. And truly, you're a free man once you start seeking, like, logic. And you might think, well, this dude's a Roman emperor. How could I even relate to this guy? He's in a whole different thing. Well, let me pull up a quote for you fellas, alright? Hear this out. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do you have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I'm born for, the things I was brought into this world to do, or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm. So, you're born to feel nice. Instead of doing things and experiencing them, don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants, the spiders, the bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best as they can, and you're not willing to do your job as a human being? Why aren't you running to do what your nature demands? You don't love yourself enough, or you'd love your nature too and what it demands of you. Marcus Aurelius talks about human servitude as one of the things that humanity was born to help each other out, in a way. And what's really cool is that he dissects what you should feel when people talk badly about you. Because not everyone in this world is going to like you, like it or not. And so, basically, Marcus Aurelius states that people who obviously think badly of you, obviously, as I said, their perceptions don't matter, but they're doing what's according to their nature, what they were born with, what the experiences they went through. If they've committed no grievance against you, why should you be upset? This is what they're doing according to their own nature. Just like how the spiders perform their own work spinning webs. These people are just doing what they do. So ignorance should not be hated, because these people are only doing what they know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
These people have not committed a grievance against you.
Exactly.
And that's it. And that's his whole thing. Is really, I think one of the quotes, I don't really have it for like word for word, but it basically states that. Man, I almost just lost my train of thought. I'm not gonna lie. I completely lost my train of thought. But basically, he just talks about just like it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. You gotta focus and find gratitude in everything, and that's what he talks about. He says when you get up in the morning, you should just be grateful for what you have, for all the simple things in life, and that's how you're going to find happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been really started to put that into work and found myself a more happier and complete individual when I did that. So that's a cool thing.
That's awesome.
I know.
Dude, so far all of our philosophers seem to be overlapping. You're talking about the nature of individuals, or like how the natural order of all of nature. You see the birds and the spiders and the bees and all these animals doing their natural duty, and how much you can learn from that. Because how as humans can we really go off the path of our own natural order? You know, what were humans created for? Like, it is entirely subjective. So you get to decide what that is,
right?
And then not give a fuck about what anybody says about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to figure out your own path as the only animal without obvious purpose. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius states that humanity's purpose is to serve one another, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So in a way, that is like purpose is servitude, is his whole ideology. It's pretty interesting because it's a different way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Instead of using being emotional, I can't speak today, but you know what I mean, emotional about certain things. Just seek the logic in it.
How do you personally think it conflicts if you are trying not to like care about what people think about you, but you still have to be in service to them? I think that's a huge, that might cause some tension. You know what I'm saying? Because you then kind of grow to be like, well, I don't give a fuck what that person thinks anyways. You maybe falling in the trap of thinking less of that person.
Well,
you know,
I mean,
so
how I see it is the person is ignorant of his own deeds by hatred. If I've actually done no wrong against them, if I've not violated them in any circumstance, I'm not at fault.
Yeah.
But since my purpose is servitude, that is me fulfilling my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the fact that I should care that the person feels wrongly about me, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all going to be dead anyway in 70 years. So what was the point? You know what I'm saying?
So it's just to realize that it's not that important. Not to be hostile. I don't give a fuck what you think. It's more to be just to not worry about it. Just not even to give it consider it the time of day.
And I think one of my favorite things is he talks about praise and how empty praise really is, because it's all going to be swept away and it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When people are done clapping for you, what thing does it make in time?
Like Ozymandias.
Can you explain that?
There's a poem about an Egyptian king named Ozymandias, and basically there used to be a big statue of Ozymandias, and it said, "I am Ozymandias, king of kings," yada yada yada. He's basically bragging about all the power that he has.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, by the time they find the statue, all that's left is the pedestal, and there's no part of him other than the feet.
Because it's swept away by the sands of time is the best thing. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. That's our perception of praise. That's all perception.
Yeah.
Perception does not equate to reality, but reality could equate to perception.
It kind of has to. That's like the age-old debate. It's like, what does that...
I mean, you said you're talking about the purpose of servitude.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the purpose of work in Voltaire's philosophy.
Ooh, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up, because there's really one cool quote from Marcus Aurelius as well that states, if a man labors all his life and works hard, but does not find any purpose on it, he shouldn't have lived at all.
That's a little contrasting to what Voltaire personally thought of work. He kind of concluded that the world is filled with suffering either way, but the human need is to work through that. Like, even when you're in pain, even when you're in suffering, you still need to work, because work distracts us from the suffering.
Yeah, sure. Oh, I remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Like how he wrote he started the farm and everything at the very end of the book. Yeah. To distract himself from the suffering that the world had to offer.
But that's finding purpose through pain. So that's technically an examined life. The whole point of like the Stoics was an unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes.
Basically. If you're going through the motions day by day, I think one of the quotes was, a man's biggest fear should not be death, it should be that he has never lived. Because death is inevitable. Death, we're all going to die, so there's no point to fear it.
You should always live life like you're going to die the next day.
Yeah, another quote. Thank you. You're just like bringing up what I read in my head about death and literally everything. Basically, it was that... Bro, I'm losing my train of thought left and right today. Jesus Christ. It was about... I know it was about something with death. I just can't remember. Maybe we'll come... Can you repeat what you said?
You should always live life like you're going to die the next day.
Yeah. So basically, Marcus Aurelius says, live life like you've already died, and then you'll see what you should have done in your daily life. And that's really an interesting concept to think. Like, pretend that you've already died and you're living a second life kind of thing.
That's a whack. I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Like, you should already. Like, you should pretend that you had somebody that you hold very dearly died, and then go about your day as though you were, like... And then speak to them as though you had missed them. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I get it.
I don't mean to take up, but Riley, I want you to talk some.
Alright, I'm gonna fuck off and let you go.
So, Albert Camus had a very silly and goofy upbringing, shall we say. Arguably one of the most famous French philosophers of all time, actually not from France, or what you would think of as France. He was born in 1913 in French Algeria, which even in terms of African colonies at the time was not at the top of the totem pole. He grew up very poor, even though he was a second-generation Frenchman living in Algeria. His father died the year after he was born, and he grew up pretty much only with his mother, and he grew up very poor. He had to work menial jobs even up until he got his formal schooling. And at the age of, I believe, 11, he was sent to a French secondary school near Algiers, which was, I believe, at the time the capital of Algeria. And instead of Chase mentioned with Voltaire being introduced to theater and philosophy by a woman, he was actually introduced to a funny little substance called morphine.
Funny little substance.
Just a goofy fun time.
Just a little goofy.
And this was introduced to him by his lover at the time, who would influence a lot of his way of thinking. And he would
pushover.
Yeah, a little bit of a pushover. But he would end up leaving her after she was cheating on him with, get this, the doctor that was prescribing her the morphine. Just a very, very bad experience there. But he joined the French Communist Party in early 1935, which is interesting to me because that pretty much stands against a lot of what he believed. he was touted for his moralism, which believed that morality should guide politics. And he was a big proponent of libertarian socialism, which he really just joined the Communist Party at that time to what he called it, fight inequalities between Europeans and natives in Algeria, even though, like I said, he was nowhere near a Marxist in any of his views. After that, he would join a few more parties at the time to kind of get insight into what they believed. And in 1938, he would begin working for the leftist newspaper Alger Républicain, and that was a big pedestal for him. He got to express a lot of his anti-fascist feelings, and that's what a lot of his absurdism is rooted in. And I think that's a pretty good transition to absurdism itself. Camus and a lot of other philosophers of his era prescribed to the absurdist view, which implied that the world didn't have any particular meaning or like a higher purpose, and is not fully intelligible by reason, which basically I interpret that in my own life as like everything's meaningless, so why not do what makes you the best version of yourself, if you get what I mean. So
perception kind of thing.
Yeah. And
really hitting hard on that today, the perception thing.
Yeah.
Everything is subjective.
I feel like that should be one of
we need
the titles.
to yeah, you should have been the black sheep.
So
it's like
is it
the Pope or something? Yeah. Objective morality.
Is it whatever makes you the best version of yourself, or whatever makes you happiest?
Yeah, because happiness is like
happiness.
Should you strive for happiness?
I've seen some pretty happy crack addicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess it kind of depends on which way you look at it, because absurdism itself, it's a very basic term. It basically just means like life is meaningless. So what I like about it is that you can interpret it in
a variety of ways,
in any way you want, like you said. Yeah. And I like to interpret it as a mix of like, I want to strive to keep myself as happy and mentally well as possible, but I also want to be a productive version of myself. So I guess it's basically taking the good with the bad, do what is the most efficient to make you a better person in both ways, you know? Nothing really matters, so just be who you want to be.
But does absurdism revolve around the sense of self and seeking the best version of you?
Not necessarily, but that's just how I kind of interpret it.
No, yeah, I think that absurdism is a very general idea.
Yeah.
Because literally, we got the Riley Staten version of absurdism.
Right.
There have been millions of versions of it. You know, people interpret it all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, it's super vague.
It's just basically like life is meaningless, and then people take that shit and run with it.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, no way.
So burn down everything.
Is nihilism like
on the Pride building?
Is that a different philosophy entirely, or is that like a subgroup of absurdists?
There is crossover in the thought, but I think the one that links best to absurdism isn't actually nihilism. I think it's existentialism, and that's more of like a questioning view on human existence.
Yeah. It's more like the why kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I did Albert Camus last time, and I think he has his own definition, or not, like, he has his own ideas about it. I can't remember his exact, because I've looked up a lot of...
I'm pretty sure Diogenes was a bit of absurdism.
Yeah.
I remember.
Oh, he has the kind of... I forget if it was you or Chase, Matt, who was talking about when you stop and look at happiness, it's not about happiness, it's about the purpose you find. It's about becoming
and being basically satisfied with existence.
Yes, with your work, the work that you've put into yourself, the work you've created. I think Albert Camus kind of was a root for that, or maybe not, in a different time period.
Yeah.
Because he says, you will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. So I think he took it as life is no more meaningful than what you make it.
Yeah.
I know Marcus Aurelius says about the same thing. Like, if you search for happiness, you'll never find it. Happiness is a state of mind. It's a mindset. It's literally what happiness is, what Marcus Aurelius preaches. So like doing this will make me happy. No, you have the mindset of doing that will make you happy.
And even more, I think it's a mindset that comes along with the fact, like with all the work that you do to be yourself. Like you can only be truly happy as yourself.
But that work is on the mindset that I will be happy if I do this work.
Yeah.
It's like how crack addict says, I'll be happy if I do this crack. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
that's why you can't chase after it. But
yeah.
An interesting thing to me is this entire idea that you can get satisfaction from work. Of course, it's not the only way, but I will say some of the ways in which we do get satisfaction, like if you watch a movie, the greatest movies make you feel like you're in the movie, like you're there, like you've done something. So they make you satisfied for that reason, because it feels like you're almost there, like you've actually done something, or like something's been accomplished.
Yeah.
Even though you just were watching a screen for like 2 hours.
Yeah, everything comes full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you see
it's almost like appeasing the human mind on like on the right zones of the brain.
Yeah. Damn it! It's no more than biology.
We're
here for nothing.
And I think
we're doing
now we're talking about physics and metaphysics.
It's actually more chemistry.
Yeah. Oh.
Ooh.
Well, you know, chemistry is just applied biology. Wait, no, fuck.
Biology is just applied chemistry.
Applied chemistry. This is applied physics, and no, physics is applied biology.
Whatever. At the end of the day, it's just science.
Yeah, exactly. It's just science.
Physics is just math.
But then people argue that metaphysics can also be science, and then you go down that slippery slope.
Yeah.
There's Ralph Waldo Emerson was actually a metaphysicist. I really wish I could have gotten to study that a little bit more, but the word meta confuses the shit out of me, so I'm gonna have to start there. Maybe we could get back to it next time, but
for sure.
Maybe. I feel like we should go into conspiracy theories next.
Yeah, last episode we did conspiracy theories.
Can we do like philosophers that, well, not necessarily people that weren't philosophers but still delve into their philosophies?
Give me an example.
Like H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, okay.
You just want to talk about the cat.
You just want to mention. You just want to name drop his cat.
But he was very interesting in the way that he was like his upbringing. He was just afraid of anything that was unknown to him.
Van Gogh is afraid of crickets, bro. I was
just
thinking,
not afraid of his cat. Racial discrimination.
He probably because he had a cat beforehand, but.
Did he also have autism?
It's possible.
Okay.
I don't know that much about him. I just know that he the reason why he was as racist as he was in a state like Maine was because he never left the house and developed a fear of the outside
sounds
world.
Sounds like a gamer, bro.
Never touched grass, was afraid of minorities.
Dude, was H.P. Lovecraft the first gamer?
Dude, it's so sad that he died. He would have loved Fortnite.
Oh my god. I was thinking today, like, why is it that we search for knowledge as humans? Shouldn't we be content with the world that we live in? And then I realized that maybe it's fear of the unknown that drives us to understand things. You know?
It's uncertainty. There's like whole communication theories that talk about how humans do every decision you make is to reduce uncertainty because you hate not being in the know.
Yeah, and although it gives fear, and that's like survival instinct.
That's why death scares the shit out of people. But what was the quote you said? It was, you shouldn't be scared of death. You should be scared of never living at all. You've never lived at all. And people, that's something that flies under the radar. People don't give a shit about that.
Honestly, I mean, but there's so many ways to interpret the unknown.
Yeah.
Like we often think that.
But the unknown
I'm
is
just going to use
a
aliens as an example.
Well,
if aliens do exist, then they're probably going to colonize us or something because that's what the Europeans did to the Native Americans. But that's not what other countries were doing to other countries that they're interacting with. So who's to say that that's going to happen?
Well, I mean, the fear of the unknown is just a human perception, if you think about it.
The unknown is a substance because we know that we don't know things. You know, so we're scared that we're more scared that we realize we have a limit. You know, I think personally, if you know you got a capacity to learn shit, then everything beyond that is like, oh dang, I am inferior to probably everything else in the universe.
Yeah. It's just very interesting. I personally, I don't understand what the point in fearing death is. I mean, obviously you don't want to die at an early age.
Of course.
You know, but
hell probably.
Yeah.
Okay, fellas. I was thinking, and I found a Marcus Aurelius quote that glossed my mind. I looked it up so I wouldn't lose my train of thought this time. Okay. So, it's about anxiety and just, like, a lot of his stuff just talks about, like, facing adversity. So the quote is, Today I escaped from anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Mm-hmm. And that it's a simple quote, but it has a lot of meaning to it, of course. Mm-hmm. Because Marcus Aurelius always talks about perceptions and everything, and really just like facing difficulty, and like the way he believes the logos will set you free. That was his whole thing. I probably should have said it way back when, but it didn't come to mind. So this little snippet just thrown on towards the end of the podcast, of course.
Mm-hmm. Where was it? It was probably somewhere in my notes that. Well, what was the last thing you just said?
That Marcus Aurelius talks about the logos setting you free.
Logos will set you free.
Basically, like, our best and surest power is over ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about really individualism and really like finding strength in you.
That's where I was.
And not finding strength in external things.
That's why Waldo Emerson talks about self-reliance so much, because everything you have.
It's only you at the end of the day.
Yeah,
right?
it's just you. You're the only one that has to lay in your bed and think about all the wrongs you could do, or promote yourself that you were doing what's best. You're becoming an individual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good quote about like. This is what I was trying to talk to you guys about when I was saying like what other people think of you, and that's when I lost my train of thought. But I found the quote, so I guess I might as well say it. When another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety, that they should hold any particular opinion about you.
I think Albert Camus says a lot of that too.
They sound very similar.
Because he says that nobody knows what the purpose of life is. Mm-hmm. So why give them credibility to say that your purpose or who you are is lesser?
Yeah.
They have no clue.
And I think that's why he very much opposed like stuff like war and weapons of mass destruction. Not only did he focus on internal absurdism, he also focused on external. Like, he wanted each person to be able to interpret life in their own way without so much interference. Mm. And I feel like that's a lot of where I agree with him on. Mm. That's where I take a lot of influence from him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you can have individuality in a nation and in a society that's so judgmental, then you're doing something right.
Oh, for sure.
You have to be doing something right.
Yes.
And if I'm just going to keep throwing quotes on you fellas, because it's the most effective way I can speak it. If you guys are ever worried about facing the future or what the future holds, fear not. I have a quote for you. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Basically, it's like, you got this, dog, is basically what he's saying. Yeah. Because you have the same logic with you, the same reason with you. You can face anything once you find the logic in everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's so cool. It talks about self-empowerment and not needing other people as a sign of strength, that you are the sign of strength kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Our philosophers definitely agree on that, Matt. I hope that there's probably some influence of Marcus Aurelius on
a lot of them. I mean, he's early. Was it Greek?
He was a Roman.
Roman.
He was an emperor.
But still, that's one of like the first civilizations to just exist. Mm-hmm. At least the first empire.
Yeah, definitely one of the first to develop ethics. Like a standardized ethics. Mm-hmm. For a whole entire civilization.
Right. Yeah. I know for a fact that Camus said that among his influences, the two names he brought up, one of them was Nietzsche and one of them was Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. Nietzsche, he was a famous nihilist, wasn't he?
He was existentialist.
He was
existentialist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got to do one on him too.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw like a couple YouTube videos on him a month or two back, but
I gotcha.
So one thing I wanted to add to this episode was for us to go around and leave one bit of information. So, you know, if you are telling somebody about it and you want to just say, you don't got to watch all of it, but definitely listen to the last couple minutes of it.
They got to watch all of it.
I mean, I'm not going to, yeah, they might as well.
Well, I mean, just maybe we should bring up things that
what's the most important bit of advice from the perspective of your philosopher? What piece of advice do you think that they would give the listener right now?
I think one of my favorite things is, obviously I've talked about self-empowerment, but it's also just understanding that people's opinions are not as important, you know what I mean? We always get swept away with like, oh, this person thinks this way of me, or this person thinks that of me. But really at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Because I don't really know you, man. And they can be like the worst people on the planet and think bad about you. Why does it matter? Why should it affect you? It's their problem, not yours, kind of thing. And that's the coolest thing. It's like living with no social fear of what other individuals will think of you. And I think that's where true strength really... I think that's how you show true strength in yourself, is really not caring about the social norms of things and just going about your own business, you know what I mean? And a lot of people fold to other people's opinions too easily. And that just shows that they just don't believe in themselves, you know?
Yeah. Mine is very similar to that, in the self-reliance aspect, that you are the strongest bit of the strongest thing you can lean on in your life. You know, you're the only one gunning for you. But it kind of goes to a universal fact that Ralph Waldo Emerson believed that divinity pervades just about everything and is within everything. So because you are innately divine, because you are so
Did you touch more on divinity? I don't think you touched a lot on divinity.
That's kind of where I'm heading. Though. That's kind of where I'm heading. Because he believed that, in a sense, all of us are God. You know? Just a different expression of it. Which is funny because I like comparing it to y'all's nothing is important. Because in reality, it's only as important as you make it. Because you are the experiencer. You are the one perceiving it, and you are the one judging the amount of value you place on it.
Okay, that kind of reminds me of this Voltaire quote. If God created us in his own image, we have more than reciprocated. So I think he was kind of saying that,
I like that
we view God in a way like we view ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
we're like clones in a way, kind of.
Yeah. So, like, we view him as man, but he created us in his own image. Something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of...
I think I'm following you.
It,
like we've done our jobs and more of being the way God created us.
Yes. Yeah. Not only that, though, but we also view God as being like a human.
Yeah, as human-like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like we created him in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like
he has revelation.
He's not just a religious figure, but he's cultural as well.
Yeah. Like a figurehead.
Yeah.
Thing. And if that's true, if we've actually reciprocated more than enough, I think the best way, if Ralph Waldo Emerson was to give any piece of advice to the listeners, it'd be that the best way to reciprocate your divinity, to prove your divinity, is by finding who you are and being that person as truly as you possibly can. Yeah. Living the purpose that you find for yourself through work, like y'all talked about, through work and through the natural experience, which is really, really cool.
I guess I have to name this episode Perception and Purpose.
I guess so.
I think if Camus was here right now, I think he would say something along the lines of this. Life is full of random paradoxes and events that we cannot predict. And I think the only thing that will remain constant, that we will for sure guaranteed know, is ourselves. And I feel like...
it's that self-strength.
Yeah. So I think his big word of advice would just be to focus on making yourself the best version of yourself, because that's all you can really count on in this life.
That's right. It's only constant. Really.
Yeah. That's
things will come and go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think there's very many people that disagree.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of eye-opening because we don't really think about that.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in all the little things around us that we lose the bigger picture of things.
And then you have control over it with your perception. Whatever hits you can bounce off of you.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. Some people get hit with small things of adversity and fold. You know what I'm saying? Some people get hit by it and say, "What?" like nothing happened. Look, bro, are you okay? Like, bro, what you talking about? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like some people will be like to work right after they hear the news that like their dad died or something. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's life goes on. One of those sort of things.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was Marcus Aurelius that said this, but I believe when his son died, it was one of the Stoics. He just said, "I always knew my son was mortal," and just continued on with his
Yo. Come on, man.
That is wild.
Yeah.
L.
Common.
Default Fortnite dance.
Common ancient Rome hijinks.
I mean, bro, they were built different. You know?
Common Stoic W.
Plays Fortnite afterwards.
Marcus Aurelius, your son died. Okay. And just starts playing Fortnite.
He's like, "Can you not? I'm playing a game of Warzone right now."
I'm in top 20. The storm's coming.
Dude, I'm watching the Gladiators right now. Fuck off.
For all of you that are listening and can't see this, Chase is giving us entertainment by Fortnite dancing right now. I'd like to let that be known.
Very whimsically imagine that in your brain.
Chase is low-key an absurdist for that. Nothing matters, only Fortnite dancing.
Being his true, authentic self.
Self-improvement.
The ultimate goal in life is to play Fortnite. If you can do that even for a day, you're accomplished.
Maybe that's the purpose.
Maybe that's his purpose, is to be a pro
It's been in
Fortnite
front
player.
of us this entire time. We just have ignored it.
The Fortnite Booga mic was sitting directly in front of us, and we all ignored it.
There's a reason why we're using the Fortnite Booga mic.
The Fortnite Booga mic is life, okay? Alright, I feel like we should end this episode here. As always.
Anybody else got any last remarks?
Yeah, well, any last remarks, fellas?
I have one quote. Doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is an absurd one.
Oh, that's true.
Ooh, I'm liking that.
I like that.
It's impossible to be sure of anything, which kind of goes with the scientific reasoning of how theories are developed and whatnot, because a theory can't be 100% proven. It can only be not falsified a number of times.
Or plausible, you know.
And so that kind of that's probably the best example of a quote that would exemplify his belief in efficacy of reason. But that's true for life too. You can never be too certain of anything.
Things will always change.
Things are chaotic, things change, and Voltaire was no stranger to this. Obviously, his parents died. He ended up going to jail for something that wasn't even huge. He got banished to England, which might be worse than death. But actually, he thought that was pretty cool. Maybe that's just his internal optimism. I don't know. But yeah, that's just a quote that stuck out to me. It seemed pretty cool to me.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, my own personal thought was, isn't it funny that life is no actual natural order, and we as humans built a society to create a natural order?
No, and something that I've thought about before is that when those societies conflict, it just creates chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what...
we thought we were doing a service, but in reality, it's whoa, shit.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it way harder.
Yeah.
We have freedom. And
I mean, you could argue that there's, order in, nature and the food chain or whatever, but... I
would argue that,
ultimately, there's also just pure chaos. A tornado just comes out of nowhere and just rips everybody to shreds, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything isn't constant in a way, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, but it is a subject to revere, though.
Yeah.
Because that seems like the only thing that is a constant. You know?
Well, you could argue that time can be constant, but time can also be chaotic at the same time.
And time can't be necessary. I
don't think time can be put into a box.
In our experience, though, time can't be reversed.
Yeah.
Either, though.
Until we figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're really just exerting our will on
Shit, bro, but what if it's a loop, though?
Sometimes I low-key think about that.
I know.
Like the time travel paradox. Like if you invented time travel,
time is a closed system, and it's going to loop back.
There's a guy who has a theory.
There's a theory on that.
It's like eventually
humanity will collapse or restart itself.
Yes, and it'll do that so many times that we will be having this exact same conversation with the exact same words and like pauses and all that before time ends. At least once again, probably an infinite number of times again. Just crazy.
Yeah.
Like maybe like the reason why we can't go back in time is time's just a closed system.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like maybe time isn't uncertain. Maybe everything was planned out to do a certain thing over and over again.
Yes.
Or can you even say that it has a destination?
So maybe like destiny really means something.
It was Camus. He said something that was cool. It was like, oh no. Maybe it's Nietzsche's time paradox. It's like if you were faced with a demon and that demon said, and you just died, right? And the demon comes up to you, is like, hey, bro. So you didn't know this, but you've been living the same life over and over and over again for infinity. You go back down to Earth, you live the exact same life over. Mm-hmm. And Nietzsche is like, his question is, what do you do when you find that out? Are you like, damn it?
Nothing.
You know?
Because that is beyond your control.
Well, I know what I'm saying, but like, if you were to live the life you are living right now, and you had to do it over again up to this point,
but it
is that like something you'd be disappointed in doing forever?
Well, it sounds like your memory gets just wiped every time. So like, how could there be disappointment? It's just gonna be ignorance the entire time.
Yeah.
Because you, in the moment, you could be like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
But does it really matter? Are you the one who puppets the strings of time? Like,
that's the one critique that a lot of people have had for Nietzsche's thought experiment, is that, you know, obviously you're not going to remember any of it, so it doesn't really matter. But if you were to know, like, I've lived this life before, and you were to say to yourself, like, I'm going to have to do it again, would that be disappointing to you? You know, did the person you become make you feel like you'd never really even lived in the first place?
Because like it's all planned out, like maybe free will just isn't a thing, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I was getting more. That was delving back into like philosophy type,
interesting.
You know, would you be disappointed with your life? Like, are you disappointed with your life?
Well, then you could argue, like, wouldn't that make you like a divine being in a way if you're forced to relive the same thing? Like, there's purpose.
So, well, that kind of reminds me of the argument: does God have free will? If there is a God, of course. If there is a God, then does God have free will? Or was he forced to, like, make us?
Have free will.
Yeah. I don't know. Everybody just always says God isn't constrained to that. And that's just, like, a great, and, like, that's a good answer. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're theoretically made in the image of God, and if we have free will, that would mean God has free will.
But I think that there's no other way it could be, though. It's like it's free. Oh, shit, then maybe it's not free will. Okay. I think if the way that God made us, and the fact that he did make us in his image, would mean that that there is no other way that it could be. The eternal optimism that this is the best reality is like, there's no other way it could be.
Yeah.
You know, like God is just the ultimate flow of perfection.
Well, then there's also like the afterlife you have to take.
That's true. I don't know. We'll
but I mean, we're all just talking about concepts here.
Yeah.
On a never-ending podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Let's close.
Season 2, motherfuckers.
Season 2. Let's go.
Everyone, reintroduce yourselves. I'm Matt Drawn.
I'm Riley.
Simmons. I'm Riley Stanton.
I'm Chase Hendricks.
And this has been the Season 2 of the Philosacast. Only one episode.
Power and purpose.
Let's clap that up. Alright, let's close this thing.